Well, HUL versus Bharti Airtel, data or dove? You heard it right. And no, before you think that it isn't a fair comparison, think about it. You probably require your phone and mobile data as much, if not more, than your shampoo and soap. And that's what Jefferies believes as well. Thus, this comparison are both on India's consumption story itself. In fact, there are a lot more similarities between HUL and Bharti Airtel than differences. For instance, exactly 10 years ago, both of them had similar market caps at 1.2 lakh crores in 2014. A decade later, and after different journeys for both, the market cap is back together at 6 lakh crores. It was the adverse regulatory environment and rising competition that weighed on Bharti Airtel until 2019, whereas margin-led earnings growth propelled HUL's market cap at one point to nearly 3 times of Bharti. Both companies also operate in industries that have similar addressable markets. Both the industries have been growing. I mean, the telecom industry over the last decade has grown at 5.5% CAGR. The FMCG industry itself has grown about 7%. That's not all. Bharti Airtel and HUL, both of them also operate with largely similar market shares. HUL has 34% market share and Bharti Airtel at around 35%. Let's talk about the differences now. Bharti's market share, however, is uniform across all regions, reflecting a largely consolidated market, whereas HUL operates in a highly competitive market across most of their categories. How have the financials been over the last 10 years? Bharti's revenues have compounded at 6%, EBITDA at around 9%. HUL has grown a tad faster at around 9% and 12% CAGR respectively. However, for the last few years, the revenue growth of Bharti Airtel has been a lot better. Though what stands out for HUL is the strength in their balance sheet. Let's look at the invested capital for both Bharti and HUL. Invested capital for Bharti started at 1.5 lakh crores in FY21, moving all the way up to 2 lakh crores last year, whereas HUL invests just 2.5% of that annually. In fact, if you account for the cash that HUL generates, their invested capital is a lot lower. And that explains why Bharti has a net debt of over 2.08 lakh crores, whereas HUL has a net cash balance of nearly $1 billion. This despite having a much higher dividend payout ratio of nearly 90%. The question though now is what next? Jefferies says going forward, entry barriers are going down in the FMCG industry, whereas the barriers to entry are increasing in the telecom market. That has significantly increased. Basically, competition is increasing in the consumer space, even as telecom is moving towards a duopoly. Growth and valuations are both at odds for Hindustan Unilever as a disadvantage. In fact, Jefferies expects a 9% EPS compounding for HUL over the next few years, whereas for Bharti on a low base, it grows at over 54%. Hence, their view is a better defensive play on India's consumption story would perhaps be Bharti and not HUL at the current juncture. Therefore, they have a buy rating on Bharti with a target of 1300, whereas for HUL, they recommend a hold with 2800. So hold on Dove and buy on data is what they say. Unusual, but definitely a lot than what meets the eye.